It was no doubt one of the craziest election cycles in living memory. It was also a week when Bitcoin broke through $15,000 and renewed a sense of optimism for an upcoming rally. Indeed, if you take a look at how the rest of the crypto market has been moving, there's no doubt that bull market seeds have been sown. However, what was driving all this? Was it as a result of the outcome or merely coincidental? And what does this mean for the adoption and price potential of Bitcoin as a whole? Well, this is exactly what we're going to be answering in this video. I'll be going over the latest market movements and explaining why Bitcoin could be on the cusp of a price explosion. I'll also examine what a Biden presidency means for crypto regulation and, consequently, its long-term adoption potential. So, if you hold Bitcoin or are considering purchasing some, then this video will be essential to your investment thesis. I also have some personal Bitcoin predictions over the coming 6 months, which you definitely don't want to miss. I just have to appease my lawyer with some legalese, so bear with me if you please. Everything said in this video is purely educational. I like talking about crypto and sharing it with you folks, but I am definitely no financial advisor. Please do your own research, guys and gals. With that out of the way, I'd like to take the time to welcome any new viewers. The name is Guy, Crypto Guy. I am a secret agent sent forth from the Coin Bureau to investigate everything crypto, from markets to news and reviews, analysis and some deep investigative dives. If you want to be part of my crypto mission, signal your interest by smashing that subscribe button and turning on all of those notifications. That way you have a direct line from the Bureau. One more thing. I want to draw your attention to all of these timestamps over here. They are there entirely for your convenience, so feel free to hop around to those sections that interest you the most. Alright team, enough of my nattering pitter-patter. Let's dive right in. It was no doubt a contentious election, and it is still polarizing the US. However, it appears as if Biden won the election. While there may be court battles, he is more than likely to be the next president. Financial markets rallied as there was more certainty about an outcome than there was just prior to it. And it seems as if Bitcoin has also been swept up in the relief rally as it reached levels that have not been seen since the 2017 bull run. Of course, Bitcoin has been increasingly accumulated by institutional investors prior to the election, something which I've covered in previous videos. However, the certainty around the election outcome was no doubt a catalyst for these investors to further stockpile their Bitcoin holdings. And although it seems as if it was initially just a Bitcoin rally, altcoins did follow suit. Bitcoin is a rising tide that lifts all altcoin boats. Now, while this was a bit of a relief rally for Bitcoin and other financial markets, it's important to actually take a step back and question what this outcome means in the short to medium term. Things are likely to still be quite volatile, and we should of course not forget that we are in the middle of a pandemic, which has entered its second wave, one that's already seeing devastating economic lockdowns. So, this is the current lay of the land. Let's take a look at what we can expect over the next 3 to 6 months. Firstly, although the presidential outcome has been determined, the election is actually still ongoing. So what do I mean by that? Well, there is a runoff election that's going to take place in Georgia in order to elect the 2 senators from that state. None of the senators in that race managed to get over the 50% threshold, which means that they have had to go for the runoff, which will take place in early January. This is a highly consequential election, as it will determine who gets control of the Senate. The party that has control will determine whether Biden can get his presidential agenda through or not. Oh, and fun fact, one of the candidates in that election is Kelly Loeffler. If that name rings a bell, then it should, as she is the ex-CEO of Bakkt, the Bitcoin futures trading platform for institutions. Anyways, the Democrats need to pick up both of these seats in order to get control of the Senate. With a Republican-controlled Senate, Biden is going to have an uphill battle when it comes to getting any sort of legislation passed. This is important for so many different reasons. It will impact on tax policy, government spending, regulation, and other important market-moving legislation. So there are two different scenarios that could play out here post the runoff, and each of these could have their own impacts on Bitcoin. Let's take a look at the first one: Republican Senate, Biden presidency. Under this scenario, many of those policies that Biden made the centerpieces of his presidency would not be able to get through. Tax increases are unlikely, and additional stimulus checks will be a hard fight to win. Anything that requires extensive government spending on the fiscal side will be hard to get through the Senate. This is unfortunate, as it will be coming at a time when the country is in dire need of some more stimulus measures. If the pandemic continues to rage out of control, then there are likely to be further shutdowns to try and slow the spread. Should this be the outcome, the only other tools that will be available will be monetary stimulus. In other words, making the Fed money printer do some serious overtime. Yep, the Federal Reserve will have to think of new ways to buoy the economy by flooding the system with easy money. This adds to the trillions upon trillions that they have already made rain since the start of the pandemic. Now, while monetary stimulus does have the short-term impact, it is mostly artificial. It inflates stock prices and leads to not only a fall in the US dollar, but also long-term inflation. This is something that I covered recently on my video on the pandemic inflation, and you can watch that right over here. So, the impact of this additional monetary stimulus is likely to be a fall in the dollar and eventual inflation. Both of these mean that institutional and retail investors are going to be looking for a hard asset that can work as a hedge against it. An asset that has a limited supply and cannot be inflated away. Some may choose gold, but many will choose Bitcoin. This will allow them to protect their investments if they are institutions and protect their balance sheets if they are corporates. As we know, assets that have a limited supply and an increase in demand will lead to an increase in price. Other factors that could be at play given the Republican Senate is the fact that Biden is unlikely to get his tax increases through. I'm of the view that this will buoy the equity and Bitcoin markets. Firstly, if there are no tax increases, it means that corporate earnings will not be crimped. As we all know, more earnings per share generally lead to a higher share price. Secondly, you also have to consider the impact of those personal tax increases. These would have mainly affected the high net worth individuals and hodlers who were thinking about investing in crypto. If there was an increase in capital gains tax, it could alter their investment priorities. So, if these tax increases are kept off the table, then it's likely to buoy the equity and the Bitcoin markets. Now, that's the scenario in which Biden does not control the Senate. It is likely to lead to quite a bit of legislative gridlock, but I ultimately think that it will be beneficial for assets like Bitcoin. Assets that not only have value-preserving properties, but also high upside potential. But let's assume that the Democrats are likely to win that runoff and Biden controls the Senate. What could this mean? Well, as mentioned, this means that he can push through his relatively progressive agenda. All of those campaign promises that he made can become a reality. This is more than likely to be net negative for Bitcoin and the financial markets more generally. Allow me to explain. Firstly, if Biden controls the Senate, then he can get a large COVID stimulus bill. I'm talking a massive fiscal stimulus push that will likely include a lot of individual support. This includes those stimulus checks that Americans saw in the first shutdown. Now, while many families are likely to use this for paying down expenses and meeting bills, there are many individuals who will look to invest this. Indeed, in those first rounds of stimulus checks, it was no coincidence that we saw many people buying penny stocks on Robinhood and investing in crypto on the likes of Coinbase. No need to guess which was better. Of course, these were retail traders, and it's questionable about how much their demand for crypto can actually move the needle. There's also no guarantee that we'll see a large inflow this time around. It has been quite a long time since the first checks, and these folks will have expenses to meet. So, yes, it is possible that this could lead to a flood of retail money, but I'm less bullish of it driving price as much as whales corporates and institutions accumulating. That is the fiscal side of it, but you also have to consider that Biden will want to push through those tax increases for the corporations and those individuals with more than $400,000 in yearly income. As mentioned, this is likely to decrease incentives for risk-taking on the individual side and reduce profits on the corporate side. When it comes to monetary policy, less will be needed as fiscal policy will be used to boost the economy. This means that Jerome will cool it with the money printers and there will be less inflation and dollar devaluation. What's good for the almighty dollar is not necessarily good for Bitcoin. So, that is the scenario if Biden were to control the Senate. Not great for the price of Bitcoin and not too good for those large crypto whales, if I'm honest. I'm actually of the view that this is the less likely scenario. I don't think that the Democrats will be able to control the Senate in January. However, irrespective of what can happen on the legislative front, Biden will still be able to put forward candidates for his cabinet positions. He will be able to appoint people into regulatory roles, people who could be more open to cryptocurrency than they have been under the Trump administration. So, let's take a look at some of them, shall we? It's no secret that Trump was not the biggest fan of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. Heck, he even said so much in a tweet about it last year. And there were numerous reports last year that he directed his Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin, to, quote, go after cryptocurrency. And we should also not forget that his Justice Department recently released a report on crypto regulatory enforcement. It was not the most flattering report, to say the least. I've summarized it quite succinctly for you over here. Now, of course, there are likely to be a number of changes when the new presidency starts. When it comes to Biden himself, he does not own any Bitcoin. Yes, shocking, I know. Old man is a no-coiner. However, that does not mean that he's not been surrounding himself with some pretty pro-crypto individuals. For example, I'm sure most of you know Andrew Yang. Yep, the leader of the Yang Gang was an advisor on the Biden campaign. Bitcoiners will no doubt know that Andrew Yang was one of the most pro-crypto Democratic presidential candidates. He actively made the case for more regulatory clarity, promoted the benefits of blockchain tech, and even took Bitcoin donations. So, having someone like this working with Biden is no doubt a plus. Oh, and it should also be noted that Yang will also be heading to Georgia to help the Dems win the Senate. No doubt that could put him on a solid footing if they do manage to pull something off there. Of course, Yang was not the only pro-crypto bro on the Biden ticket. Over in the VP corner, we have Ryan Montoya as one of the advisors to Kamala Harris. He may not be as well known as Andrew Yang, but Montoya used to be the CTO of the Sacramento Kings basketball team. For those of you who follow the NBA, you'll know that the Kings were one of the most crypto-friendly basketball teams around. They issued blockchain-based tokens last year and have collaborated with Consensus to auction off fan gear on the Ethereum blockchain. Perhaps he had Kamala's ear about some crypto stuff. And if that is indeed the case, then it is likely that she would have taken notice. According to legendary crypto investor Tim Draper, Kamala can, quote, learn crypto. Let's hope she does. Now, of course, there was a much stronger proponent who was recently appointed by Biden, and that is Gary Gensler. Gensler is a professor at MIT who has given numerous lectures on Bitcoin and blockchain technology. He has also been a proponent of crypto outside of academia, and last year penned a CoinDesk op-ed where he talked about Bitcoin being a catalyst for change. Anyways, Gary is being considered as Biden's advisor on Wall Street regulation. I can't help but smile at the irony that a Bitcoin proponent could have a hand in crafting regulation for the big banks. Watch out, Jamie Dimon. In all seriousness, though, they should watch out. Under President Obama, Mr. Gensler was involved in the prosecution of the investment banks that manipulated the LIBOR interest rate. As we all know, JP Morgan is no stranger when it comes to market manipulation. But I digress. Either way, it is great to see that Biden could have someone like this advising him on financial regulation. you can be damn sure that Mr. Gensler is likely to take a much more dovish tone to Bitcoin and blockchain technology than the likes of Steve Mnuchin ever did. So yes, in the end, a Biden administration is likely to be more friendly to cryptocurrency. If you need any further evidence of that, you need only take a look at Biden's top donor list. If FTX.US looks familiar to you, it should. That's because it was reported that Sam Bankman-Fried, the FTX CEO, donated $5 million to the campaign in this cycle. This shows two things. Firstly, one can assume that he would have backed a candidate that was well aligned with his business interests. If you run a cryptocurrency exchange, you will want the more crypto-friendly candidate to win. Only logical. However, this election also means that you have a bit more access to those within the administration. These are some of the main incentives for all of those donors on that list. And with greater access means more opportunity to preach the good gospel of crypto. Now that we have an idea of the potential political landscape for crypto in a Biden presidency, I want to take a look at one other factor which looms pretty large. That's right. In amongst all this election pandemonium, we have the small matter of a massive pandemic, which is raging in its second wave. However, in a year full of COVID bad news, we recently got a breakthrough on the vaccine front. Yes, on Monday, the drug maker Pfizer announced that they had some extremely good results of their vaccine candidate. Long story short, the vaccine proved to be 90% effective in the first 94 patients that were tested. These are no doubt impressive results for any vaccine candidate. There are also reports that other pharma companies, such as AstraZeneca and Moderna, are in the final stages of their own vaccine candidates. On top of these results, it was also reported that these vaccines could eventually be rolled out en masse by December. I don't need to tell you the positive impact this has had on the equity markets. Airline, travel, and hospitality stocks rallied. COVID stay-at-home plays tanked. But in general, there was a great sense of optimism that the devastating impacts of these government-mandated lockdowns can perhaps be avoided. Now, of course, the most important question is, what does this mean for the crypto markets? Well, although Bitcoin did fall a bit after the announcement, I do happen to think that this is super bullish for its medium-term price potential. Allow me to explain. As mentioned earlier, all of this stimulus that's been thrown at the pandemic comes with receipts. The oceans of fiat that were printed by the central bankers are going to have consequences for inflation. This is something that I went into in depth in a video on post-lockdown inflation. That's linked to below, by the way, in case you missed it. The point is that if the vaccine means people are going to want to get back to their normal lives, there is going to be an explosion of pent-up consumer demand. This is, of course, a major driver of inflation, called demand pull inflation. The amount of dollars chasing the limited goods and services is likely to be much more if the Fed has to resort to more of that short-term monetary stimulus. This is that Republican Senate Biden presidency scenario that I talked about earlier. Even if we have the less likely scenario of a Biden presidency and Dem Senate, that outcome could also have inflationary impacts in a post-lockdown world. Remember, in that scenario, you have large fiscal stimulus, including direct payments to citizens. If people are coming out of lockdown and they have free money to spend, you can be damn sure that they're going to be splurging. We do, after all, live in a consumerist world. Again, that is money that is chasing limited goods. You can also be sure that in a post-lockdown world, we'll have less choice as consumers, which only exacerbates that demand pull inflation I talked about. So, the market is no doubt going to be looking for some of those inflation hedges. Of course, as I've made the case many times before, Bitcoin is perhaps one of the best inflation hedges out there. Limited in supply, transparent and easy to move, it kicks gold to the curb. Indeed, there are many companies that are already taking steps to protect their balance sheets from this potential inflation. I've covered this in my video on corporate adoption, which you can watch right over here. So, I foresee an extensive demand for Bitcoin in a post-lockdown inflationary world. And as an asset limited in supply, you can be sure this increase in demand will lead to a price explosion. 2021 will be the time when the digital gold shines. Okay, it's time to start wrapping this video up, folks. I want to leave you with a few of my closing thoughts, though. It was no doubt a contentious election. Indeed, it still is contentious and is likely to be that way for quite some time. However, the crypto markets will keep ticking and we gotta move on. Now that Biden will be the president, all eyes are on that Senate race. It's more than likely that the Dems won't be able to secure the Senate, which means limited fiscal stimulus. Of course, this does mean that our buddies at the Fed are going to prime that money printer. This flood of fiat will be thrown into the economy at a time when we're likely to be heading to a post-lockdown world, one that is likely to have immense and uncontrollable inflation. This may be devastating for dollar savers and those who have to buy essential goods, but will, of course, be quite positive for Bitcoin. More fundamentally, though, a Biden presidency may be more welcoming to crypto. It would be great to have an administration that takes a less skeptical and cynical view of cryptocurrency. Having people around him that understand the immense potential of crypto can only be a good thing. Biden has, after all, made, quote, listening to the experts a centerpiece of his campaign. I, therefore, do hope that this includes those cryptocurrency experts. And that's all I have for you today, folks. But this isn't a monologue, it's a community. So I want to hear from you. What do you think a Biden presidency means for crypto? Do you think the vaccine could lead to post-lockdown inflation? Let me know in the comments. Also, did you know that you too can now get the Coin Bureau look? Yes, now you can be the proud owner of this exact money evolution piece right here. As you folks know, I don't run ads on the channel, and as such, these t-shirt sales could go a long way towards further supporting my work. You can find a link to my online store below. Finally, team, if you found that video helpful, then help a crypto brother out. Hit those likes hard and don't forget to subscribe. I have a hot video pipeline filled to bursting with crypto content, and it's all for you. Thank you for being a loyal member of my community. I want to give back to you lovely people to show my gratitude. Every week, I share an email of my personal insights into the crypto market. This covers everything from hot coin picks to market analysis. And it's where I also share the breakdown of my personal portfolio. So, do you want to join me? Smash it. Just head on over to the description and you will find a link to my sign-up form. Then you just insert your email and hit submit. You will just need to confirm your email and hey presto, you are a member. I'm working on my next mailer as we speak.